Hi everyone, I'm Vlad Sparastoria. This, of course, is the Uzi. The Uzi is kind of a cult weapon because, first of all, it's extremely widespread all over the world. It was a submachine gun, a truly successful personal defense weapon. Secondly, it's featured in almost every possible video game, so pretty much everyone has seen it in one form or another. This weapon is famous, it's popular as much as it is well known and widespread. There's really not much to say about Uzi. It's just an open-bolt submachine gun with a mass-type mechanism. Our story, of course, takes us to the state of Israel, where in the early 1950s it was developed by Captain, later Colonel Uzi L. Gal. A weapon designed for all those troops who weren't supposed to use a rifle or generally a long gun as their main weapon, so something was needed for rear troops, drivers, and tank crews. People who do other things, people who have other roles in the army, whose primary job isn't to carry a weapon, of course it would also be used by police and anti-terrorism units. It's still a compact weapon that provides greater firepower, using the classic 9mm in 25-round magazines. Specifically, the clashes with Syrians on the Golan Heights. It was praised for its compactness and its firepower in combat. Avoid pushing the Syrians who were trapped in the bunkers on the border in those areas. Uzi didn't invent it, but helped make it well known in firearms. Two features. The first feature is the telescopic bolt. The telescopic bolt is nothing unknown. The Czechs had already used this concept in their submachine guns, introducing it in the CZ Samopal Vs. 23, 24, 25, and 26 series with minor variations. But that is considered the first to introduce this concept of a telescopic bolt, which is actually nothing new there as well. What is a telescopic bolt? A telescopic bolt, as we've seen, for example, in the PM98, which is sort of a Polish adaptation of the Uzi, is simply a bolt where most of the mass is beyond the beginning of the barrel. Disassembling it gives a clearer view. The effect? You save some space. So the Uzi is perhaps one of the first of these weapons, one of the first in this category. While maintaining a certain barrel length, it manages to be more compact, maybe compared to World War II submachine guns or machine pistols. We're in the 1950s, not long after World War II ended. Another thing it does is visibly, it moves the magazine into the grip like a regular pistol. What does this do? Two things. First of all, obviously it saves space, and the second thing it does is help with reloading. If I close my eyes, I can still hit my hands even without seeing them. It's instinctive, something programmed into our body's control. And what if I take the weapon with one hand and the magazine with the other? Even in stressful situations or in the dark, I should be able to find it and insert it more easily. For example, I can do it perfectly with my eyes closed. That's the advantage. Since with another weapon, it's harder if I can't see where the magazine goes. Again, eyes closed, simply because I bring my two hands together. And that makes reloading much more intuitive and much easier. At night, in the dark, but especially under stressful conditions, because this is a weapon that goes to second-line troops, so in theory it's not used by front-line troops. The Uzi is a very rudimentary construction, I would say. It has a fire selector, which is perhaps the most complicated part of the weapon. Otherwise, it's just a submachine gun with an open bolt. Now let's take it apart and see exactly what it's made of. By the way, it's much heavier than you would expect. For example, if I think about the Polish PM98, which is a copy, it's a kilo lighter. At least we often talk on the channel about stamped metal. Making parts out of stamped, pressed metal is difficult. Actually, it's harder the thinner the metal is. You need the right techniques, you need the right shapes, and this receiver on the armor is made of stamped metal, but it's made of very thick stamped metal. What can industries like the very recently established Israeli one do? They have the technical capability to do it. However, this significantly increases the weight of the weapon, and if I'm not mistaken, it will weigh 3.5 kilos. This weighs as much as a Kalashnikov, just to be clear, and it's surprising, because when you pick it up, you can feel it. Compared to other submachine guns I've tried, which are lighter, this one is heavier. Still, we'll see how it performs in the live fire test. This weight makes the weapon very controllable. The UCI was produced in very large numbers, in many variants. The first variants, for example, had a wooden stock. Then they switched to this folding stock, which is terrible. I've already tried it, but it's better than nothing. You know my particular dislike for folding stocks. There are versions in many calibers, but the most popular are the plastic 9mm Parabellum and .45 automatic Colt pistol versions. There's another thing to mention. There are many UZI models made for the civilian market that work a bit differently. So if you come across a civilian UZI, why does this one fire from an open bolt? Many civilian versions fire from a closed bolt, so they use slightly different components. A slightly different bolt, a firing pin with its own spring. There are small differences you need to watch out for. Let's take it apart, put it in front of the camera, and examine how it works before the live fire test. It's very simple. As usual, let's inspect the firearm with all its controls first, and then we'll disassemble it. With the submachine gun, an automatic pistol, a personal defense weapon, however you prefer to call it, in 9mm with an open bolt firing cycle, it's fed by a removable magazine. Original versions usually hold 25 rounds. This one also holds 25. Many others have been made in many different sizes, 20, 30, 32, 40, but the original standard one is 25. By the way, something very interesting is that often the number of rounds in the magazine isn't random. They're not arbitrary numbers. For example, many people wonder why the FAS 57 or the Swiss Sturmgewehr 57 had 24 rounds in the magazine. It's not that they like the number 24, it's often a logistical matter. Swiss ammunition was packed in boxes of 24 because 24 is divisible by 6, which was the ammunition for the old Schmidt-Rubin. The 9mm ammunition comes in boxes of 50 or 100, so you can divide them evenly. Making 25-round magazines is easier. You don't have loose ammunition lying around. Often, the number of rounds in the magazine. Sometimes you go for the maximum. Sometimes it's not arbitrary at all. It's not a random number. A little curiosity. On the right side, the weapon is practically bare of any controls. All the controls are found on the left side. First of all, we have a fire selector. Forward is full auto, center is semi-auto, and back is manual safety. With this semi-auto selector, there will be a small gag during the live fire test. Then down here we have the magazine release, this part, here, this one. For those who know the Colt 1911, do you already know what this is? This is a safety. You have to press it firmly in when you grip the weapon in order to fire. I assure you I hate it. There was a moment when I didn't grip it as much as it needed to be gripped, and it didn't want to work. The weapon's safety is poor because it's large, requires full pressure, and is uncomfortable for your hand. The Uzi on the rear, we have a diopter for aiming. The rear sight has two positions, 100, and if you turn it, you get 200 meters. It's very simple on the rear. The folding stock. With this button, I can fold the first part of the stock, and by squeezing the second part of the stock, I can fold it again. By doing this, I can fold it. Everything, simply to open it, opens very quickly. Honestly, in the front, of course, we have the barrel, the sight, which can be adjusted by a gunsmith for both elevation and windage. And of course, the charging handle that is not directly attached to the bolt. It has its own spring to return forward and also acts as a cover, as you can see here. Normally, dirt and sand would get in. This thing here, while the charging handle is forward with its cover, covers this part, so that the weapon is less exposed. Possibly to the elements, so that the weapon is less exposed to dirt and things like that. The receiver of the weapon is made up of three large parts. There's a central part, an upper cover, and the box group. The trigger is held in place by these metal pins. I'm not sure if they're rivets, as I don't know enough about it. From this side, they look more like screws than anything else. To take it apart now, the parts will trigger. Why do I need to pull the trigger? Is it to close the bolt? There's this lever that must be pulled up. Cover, it comes off. The cover, it comes off. Notice, by the way, that the sights remain mounted on the receiver of the weapon, so we can proceed. Simply lift the bolt out of its seat, remove. Here. Usually, a converted weapon has a second spring for the firing pin, but this one uses a fixed firing pin and operates with a blowback system. The bolt, as you can see, is down there at the end. We notice that most of the mass of the bolt is up here at the front. The bolt itself, the face of the bolt, Where the barrel begins is here. We can see clearly here. The barrel starts here, the bolt is closed, and it extends far forward. This saves around 8 inches of space. This is perhaps the only interesting mechanical feature, this telescopic bolt. Obviously, this space here for the barrel to pass through is for an ejection port and the recoil spring, which can simply be removed. At the beginning of the barrel, there's also the double sear. As you can see, here it is, it engages here and now it's together. Automatic. And so the disconnector is activated, which raises the sear that will catch the bolt. Whereas if I set it to automatic, I've set it to automatic. Let's pull the trigger. The sear teeth simply stay down. Again, semi-automatic. The disconnector engages, and as you can see, it lowers. Only the bolt makes it move, but then they return to position. In the safety position, the trigger is locked and the sear teeth absolutely can't go anywhere. The grip safety simply disconnects the trigger. If I press it in, I can pull the trigger again, right? A simple lock that physically blocks the trigger. We obviously notice the ejector. Also, of course, we can see here the characteristic ejector of the weapon. There really isn't much else to say. We can now reassemble it and show you the firing test. We simply reassemble it by positioning the bolt in place. Perhaps one of the simplest weapons to disassemble that we've ever seen. Let's also notice one last thing. On this cover, there's the charging handle that's screwed in. Here, there's a screw here. It also has its own spring, see? It expands to return the charging handle to properly cover this space, this notch that would otherwise be there. Simply now we put the cover back on. It's ridiculously simple. Let's try it out, shall we? Here we are with our UZI. One of the things I notice is that it's heavier than you might expect, ergonomically speaking. Okay, what I don't like is what I hate in every weapon. Well, that's just my personal preference. Grip safeties are annoying. I hate them. I don't want them. This one has it, and that's something I don't like. Honestly, maybe it's just me because I'm tall, but the stock is a bit short. However, it lets me see the sights very well. Honestly, very uncomfortable. This part is honestly really uncomfortable. But I think we could do some great things with this weapon. Let's first try semi-automatic mode after loading our archificator, then switch to automatic mode. Okay, I've loaded the magazine. I'll tell you, even if it's an alternating presentation, double stack, obviously the alternating presentation helps. I wouldn't load it otherwise. Out of the 25, the last 5 were brutal. If it were single stack without the tool, it would have been absolutely impossible. So just the protection. I already got hit in the face with a shell today in a session that wasn't filmed. Let's try it. The weapon fires from an open bolt and has a fire selector. Let's try it first in semi-auto. We have a really fun target that you'll see later. All right. Okay, the weapon is loaded from an open bolt. I'm not pressing the safety enough, and it's frustrating me. Okay, that was the automatic. Now, this should be semi-auto. No, then it must be the bars. I'm talking a bunch of nonsense in this video. Let's try again. Not only did this have the two-way selector, so it's good that I'm recording the session. The part about firing before disassembling has a two-shot selector, not a single-shot one. Excellent. And away with everything, the magazine. What do you think? Indeed, damn, let's see. There are 2. Strom.
Just by turning this lock, it makes you feel like you're choosing a bit of go.
Something interesting happened. He pointed it out to me since it's an open bolt weapon. This is the first time this has happened to me, even though I've fired open bolt weapons before. The bolt starts open, fires, then moves back. I had the impression that I felt as if there were two recoils because, let's say, it fired the shot and then hit back again. I was convinced that it fired two shots, that the selector was set to two shots. I was really convinced because the sensation was identical. Instead, as he just showed me, I said something really stupid. So let's correct it again. Excellent. Now the gentleman needs to do another set. There may be two nowhere moments now. No, that's it.
He missed one, you see.
You actually hear two sounds, but it only fires one shot. The second sound is just the shutter, simply. The note really surprised me. I had it in the editing room. Ah! As you can see, a nice target. It's fantastic today. What about the UZI? It's an interesting weapon. Honestly, it's not my top submachine gun. I mean, it's a good submachine gun. I see how it can be easy to use, cheap to produce, but honestly, there are better ones and I've tried better ones. I dislike the stock and hate its safety feature and overall design. Besides that, the weapon is heavier than it appears, making it shoot very accurately. The aperture sight. I love aperture sights, let's say. Let's give them these 2 shrimp of a rating and 3 forks. Thank you all for watching this video. As always, I remind you that these videos are made possible especially by my patrons, who simply support me financially. I'm still losing out on this, but they're really helping a lot. So if you're interested in contributing to this kind of content, consider following the link you'll find here in the description. And what else can I say? As always, see you next time.